Hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the grand opening of the movie theater lobby. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Leia.
And Leia, I think as this is our first episode, maybe we should take a moment just to welcome our fellow movie-loving friends and break down exactly what we're hoping to do with our podcast.
What are we doing here?
Our goal is not necessarily to give a rundown, beat by beat, of any particular movie.
No, because you can go watch the movie.
Exactly right. You can watch a movie. You can get together with friends or family.
Or don't.
Or don't. Just solo.
Solo
it.
I like soloing it.
Yeah, soloing it's kind of nice sometimes. Not going to lie. But what we're going to do instead is we're going to get you caught up on the plot to where the real action takes place.
The meat and taters.
The meat and taters. I'm going to feed you some meat and taters. And then from there, we're going to tell you about some really cool facts about the characters and the world within the movie. All in the hopes that maybe if this is your first time or second time or even your 30th time watching the movie we've selected for the week, hopefully our information, our conversation will help you enjoy the movie all the more.
Maybe make you watch a movie you didn't think you were going to watch.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll intrigue you enough to go ahead and check out that film that you've passed on previously.
Yes.
Oh, and just as a heads up, we're going to try our best to avoid spoilers. Because
They happen.
who really likes spoilers? Let's be honest. But
Some people do.
Some people, yeah, okay, some people do. You're right. I can't be judgy. Some people do. But we will try our best to put all the large spoilers at the end of our episode. If you want to stick around for it, great. They'll be there for you. If you want to exit the lobby, we're going to try to give you an opportunity to do so.
Grab your snacks.
Your candy, soda. Feel free to come back and check out the rest after. There won't be a whole lot after the spoilers, but feel free to come on back if you want to just ride out the rest of the episode. Skip forward a little bit. Listen to it as you like. We're not prescriptive around here. And with all that covered, please grab your concessions, your snacks and sodas, as we just mentioned.
Candy.
Get the candy. Pull up a comfy seat while we bring out our faded treasure map. And follow the clues to where the X marks the spot as we chat about the Goonies.
This is their time. Their time. Up there. Down here, it's our time. It's our time down here.
The Goonies, an adventure comedy from 1985, opens with a grand spectacle. I mean, truly, what's more exciting than a prison break?
Not much.
Right? So, in this grand prison break, we're introduced to our family of criminals. The first one we meet is Jake Fratelli. He's getting his oh-so-sneaky exit out of the prison, faking his own death. He begins his grand escape. Mm-hmm. Outside waiting for him are his brother, Francis, and of course, the deviously cranky Mama Fratelli, waiting in the escape vehicle. So a police chase ensues. Mm-hmm. I mean,
exciting, small town stuff.
Truly exciting.
Yeah.
You got to keep the thrills per minute ratio up. Mm-hmm. So you go from prison break, police chase, natural sequence of events.
Yes.
As our wildcat ne'er-do-wells manage their getaway, we close in on the Goondocks neighborhood of Astoria, Oregon. Sleepy little town. At the time, at least. I'm sure it's built up quite a bit
since then.
What, over 30 years ago?
Yeah.
30. Right.
More than that.
Yeah, oh, you're right. I'm looking at 40.
Yeah.
So, in the Goondocks, we see standing a quaint little house. Living there is Mikey Walsh and his older brother, Brand. Mm-hmm. The Walsh's house is sort of the unofficial headquarters of the Goonies.
The hangout spot.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would love to hang out there.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
Yeah.
As we kind of get to know Mikey and Brand, 3 more friends in the Goonie group show up. First is going to be Mouth, followed by Chunk, and lastly, Data.
All nicknames.
The Goonies got to have nicknames.
Yeah.
I mean, what good is
that's what stands them apart.
Right.
Yeah.
The full names are for rich folk.
Yeah, that's for rich folk for sure.
So keep it familiar.
Yeah.
So they're all getting together to spend one last weekend before their homes are sold and demolished in
For
favor
what?
of a friggin' golf course
Oh, that's sad.
for the local high society elites and their ritzy country club.
Boo.
Boo! Save the Goondocks. As preteens and adolescents are known to do, some truly imaginative and well-meaning mischief ensues, right? In the midst of this mischief, the Goonies discover a fabled pirate treasure map. Mikey then relays a tale about an infamous pirate, One-Eyed Willie. Everybody knows this guy. Everybody searched for his treasure. Nobody found it, including the renowned adventurer Chester Copperpot,
Yes.
who went looking for it and never returned.
Without a map.
Without a map, the guy had some talent.
Yeah.
But that doesn't deter our spry gang of
Mischief makers.
mischief makers. So instead, they decide that One-Eyed Willie and his amassed treasure are just what the kids need to save the Goondocks. So they won't have to move. With this map in hand, they head to the coast. That's where the X is marked. When they arrive, they discover a rundown restaurant. They soon also discover that this restaurant is being used as a hideout by the Fratellis, who we met just a little bit ago.
The prison break.
The prison break and the police chase.
The police chase.
So after some more adolescent mischief, the Goonies encounter the omitted Fratelli brother, who goes by the nickname Sloth. So before the quest kicks off in full, the Goonies encounter the last two members of the friend circle, Andy and Steph. Now that the party is all Avengers assembled like, the Goonies manage to find a hidden passage leading to some long-forgotten caves underneath the restaurant. The merry band is once again harried by the Fratellis. The Fratellis give chase,
Yes.
as they certainly would, because the kids are after rich stuff, the Fratellis want rich stuff.
Yeah.
So now with all of our puzzle pieces in place, the official beginning of the Grand Goonie adventure begins proper.
Right.
Right. So, let's get the hell out of this plot
Okay.
and get to the fun stuff. Not that the plot isn't fun,
Yeah.
but go watch the movie. More fun.
We want you to
than
watch
this-
the movie and watch,
Yeah.
see the rest.
More fun than us talking about the movie.
We just want to give you a flavor.
Right.
Little flavor.
So, let's get into the cast and production staff that brought us this amazing film, right? Let's
Sure, yeah.
talk a little bit about them. So let's start first by going over the main antagonists of the movie, the Fratellis. It's as good a place to start as any with the
Yeah.
jailbreak, right? So let's start with Jake.
Yes. Played by
Jake
Robert
Fratelli.
Davi.
Yeah, played by Robert Davi. And while he was an amazing actor in his role in this film,
He was really good.
he did go on to do a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Nothing really as super notable as his role in this film, at least in my opinion. But he did have a very long tenure on the TV series The Profiler, which I've never seen.
I haven't seen it.
It was not in my interest. It was not in my wheelhouse at the age I was when that was released.
No, me either.
But Robert Davi, on the set of this film, was working with somebody he had worked with in the past. However, their working relationship was not really great. They really didn't seem to care for each other, and it showed through in a very beneficial way in their on-screen chemistry, because they were made to be antagonists toward each other. Just as you would assume brothers would be, Francis Fratelli, played by Joe Pantoliano.
Yes.
And of course, you probably know Joe Pantoliano from The Matrix. And also from the movie Memento, which is another movie that I personally really enjoy.
He was also in Bad Boys.
Was he?
Yep, in almost all of the Bad Boys. Matter of fact, he was also in the 2020 Bad Boys. He was in Risky Business.
Risky
1983.
Business. Wow. Yeah, he
Risky Business.
He did have some time.
The Fugitive. I mean, he was in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's
Empire of the Sun.
he's no slouch when it comes to
No.
movie credits for sure.
No.
But to round out the
The maligned Fratellis.
Fratellis,
Yeah.
we have of course, Mama Fratelli, played by Anne Ramsey, as we mentioned before.
Ramsey, yep.
Yeah, late, died in 1988, unfortunately.
Not long after the movie came out.
Of course, she had plenty of roles before the Goonies, and she was kind of more notable for her role in a subsequent film, Throw Mama from the Train.
Yes.
Where she actually played a character very similar to Mama.
She
Mama
did.
Fratelli.
Even more miserable.
Yeah, even more
Which is hard to
miserable and
believe.
angry. Played the mother of Danny DeVito's character in that film.
Yeah, she won a Saturn Award for Best Supporting Actress for both her role in The Goonies and then posthumously for her role in Throw Mama from the Train. And she had an Academy Award nominee for Throw Mama from the Train.
She really deserved.
Yeah.
Really well deserved.
She did a really, I mean, clearly her acting was noted.
Yeah, I don't think there is a more cranky,
crotchety,
angry, old lady actor out there.
Yeah.
Anne Ramsey she personified those roles.
Yeah, she's one of 4 Academy Award nominees that are in this film too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who else?
Sean Astin, Josh Brolin, and Ke Huy Quan are all Academy
right,
Award nominees.
I remember Ke Huy Quan more recently getting a nomination. He didn't
even just get a nomination. He won the nomination for,
right.
the
Yeah.
movie that he was in, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah, we'll get to there. This film's got quite the cast.
It does. They were also young when this came out, and a lot of them, it was either their debut or it was, a very breakout role for them. So a lot of these characters, went on to do really good stuff, in the future.
Yeah, undeniably so.
Yeah.
Well, so that rounds out our bad guys of the film, with the exception of Troy and his father,
which we can just touch on them real quick.
We'll just touch on them real fast. They're characters that live on the affluent side of town. Troy's father is the man behind the plan to purchase the Goondocks neighborhood and bulldoze it for the golf course.
Yes.
Troy's his son.
Who's just arrogant.
Who is just an arrogant jackass.
Yeah. He's icky.
Yeah, not a good fella. But with all that out of the way, I think we can finally begin touching on the Goonies, as they are the next.
The kids are so cute.
The kids are the kids in this film were just awesome.
Yeah.
They just had an astounding amount of chemistry.
Yeah, they did.
That really worked well, especially since, you can watch plenty of films with kids, and sometimes you'll look at it and be like, okay, in a few years, you're going to get there. Yeah. But right now, you
did okay.
You're fine.
You really get a sense these kids are friends.
Yeah, you get a sense they're friends, and you've got a sense that they really understand how to act and bring that behind the scenes friendship to an on-screen friendship. But let's start our Goonies breakdown with Sean Astin, who played Mikey Walsh. So this was his breakout role, not his first role.
No, but his breakout role.
But kind of what really put his star on the map, I guess, as you would say. He had a few starring roles, not a ton, as you might have expected. It was Encino Man in the 90s.
But he and Ke Huy Quan were both in Encino Man.
Right. Yeah.
They weren't in the same scene together, but they were both in the movie. So
I
think is interesting.
Yeah. Ke Huy Quan, kind of a small part in that.
A very small part, yeah.
Sean Astin, very well known for
Samwise Gamgee.
Yeah, Samwise Gamgee in the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yep.
Also, one of our favorite little comedy series starring Alan Tudyk.
Con Man is what it's called. Yeah.
Sean Astin played himself in the series Con Man. Sean Astin also appeared in not his most recent role, but very recently in Stranger Things.
Yeah, which I love because it just brings this all full circle. Stranger Things is so much like the Goonies in its bicycle riding adventure with children and
the whole kids on bikes genre.
Kind of discovery and, and he comes back but as a dad instead of a kid, and it just kind of brings his, I don't want to say his whole career, but it just like you feel good watching it. You're like, oh, he's like back where he was when he started,
he's back to being Mikey again, sort of, in a way.
He's Mikey's dad.
Yeah, exactly. He gives you that feeling like, I get a little bit nostalgic.
Yeah.
So of course, living with Mikey is his older brother Brand.
His real name being Brandon.
Yeah, his real name being Brandon.
I've told you. Hello, Mikey, honey.
It's Brand, Ma.
So Brand, played by Josh Brolin.
Mm-hmm. Acting debut.
Right, his first role.
His first role.
Yeah.
And he was an older teenager at this point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he wasn't as young as the other kids.
No, but he
Nailed
did
it.
really well.
Yeah.
I mean, I would never have guessed. Had someone not told me this was his first role, I never would have guessed that. I would have assumed he'd been around in Hollywood for a while. But no, like you said, it was his first role. And he did have another long career between Goonies and some more recent things. In my eyes, he's most notable for No Country for Old Men.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Where he had a very large role, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And as Cable in Deadpool 2.
Yes. And I remember when that came out, you were upset. You weren't upset.
No.
You were worried.
I was concerned.
Did he nail it?
He did really friggin' well.
I mean, it would have been hard to find somebody who did a better job.
Yeah, no, he did absolutely fine.
He brought that character to life as best he could.
Yeah, he got the crankiness down, which, maybe he took a few cranky tips from Anne Ramsey.
Maybe, because she's the queen.
Yes, she's the queen, and maybe he brought that into his Cable character.
Maybe. He was also in the Dune movie as well.
Oh yeah, the
most
most recent Dunes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The one of many mentors to Paul Atreides.
Yes.
In that film.
We were watching that
series.
and I was like, oh look, it's Thanos.
Yeah, it's Thanos. Yeah, that's another one of his roles
Yep.
in the MCU as Thanos, the kind of big bad for how many movies in a row.
Yeah. You couldn't tell it was him. Yeah. He had so much makeup on, but he did play that role.
Also did Thanos really well.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he can play comic book characters.
Yeah, he can.
He's got that ability. And again, kind of a subdued crankiness in Thanos.
Yes. It's kind of like you.
What?
Yeah.
No, not at all. I wouldn't destroy half the universe with a snap.
Okay.
Okay. We're just going to let that pass. Okay. Yeah. I get it. So going to kind of the polar opposite personality-wise, Mouth and Brand just don't get along.
Yeah.
Mouth is cocky and flouts the rules and loud and Brand just wants to be a teenager.
Left alone.
Leave me alone. So, of course, obviously, as we had mentioned, Mouth is the next person we're going to cover here, played by Corey Feldman, who had quite the career in the 80s and 90s.
He auditioned for Mouth. So did the other Corey. We've got Corey Haim as well. This is actually the film where they met and became friends.
So this is the fault.
Yeah, the two Coreys. Of course, Corey Feldman got the role.
Right.
But 2 years later, they filmed Lost Boys together. So
love the Lost Boys.
Yeah. So it really kind of became the start of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah, no,
kind of a thing.
They actually went on to do a large number of films together. License to Drive, Dream a Little Dream. Well, Stand By Me was just Corey Feldman, but
that was just Corey Feldman. You're correct. Yeah.
And also another great Kids on Bikes movie.
Yeah, another Kids on Bikes movie.
Yeah, and I mean he even rode a bicycle in License to Drive. So there we go.
There you go.
Kind of bringing everything
bicycles
full
all
around.
around.
Yeah. Then, of course, who would we be to not mention the fact that Corey Feldman voiced Donatello in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live-action movies 1 and 3. He did not reprise his role in 2, but voiced Donatello, my favorite turtle of all time, which is great because as a teen, I enjoyed Corey Feldman's movies, and hey, he got to voice Donatello. That's great. I love it.
Even better.
Yeah, even better.
So I feel like we had a conversation not long ago about the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Oh, yeah.
And how you could almost use Corey Feldman in something like that because he's connected to everything.
Somehow, some way, he's got those connections.
He does. So there's a museum in Oregon. It's the Oregon Film Museum. It's where a lot of the Goonies memorabilia is.
Oh.
It's in the Clatsop County Jail, where's this opening scene where Jake Fratelli is escaping. That's where they've created this museum.
Oh, they turned the jail into a museum.
They turned the jail into a museum. So you can go there, you can look at the jail cell that he was in. They've got all sorts of memorabilia there. They have the statue of David.
That's really cool.
They have the scale. There's a scale on the ship that's booby-trapped. They have that there. They have some of the treasure that was on the ship there. You can see Data's costume.
Wonderful.
They even have the ORV with bullet holes in it that they added in 2015.
Nice.
So you can see that.
ORV. Bullet holes.
But what I'm trying to get at is they have a board there called the Corey Connection. It is just like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. You can see all of the things that connect Corey to other things. And it is like 6 degrees. It's, Corey was in this, which was this, which, and then it brings you to somebody else
right.
or some other scene or something. And he was really just
he
huge
was
in the
prolific.
80s and 90s. Yeah.
Not to take anything away from him, but he hasn't been really notable in a while.
No. I think since he started his music career, it was
kind of downhill
from there.
Speaking of somebody who is not the linchpin holding Hollywood together, brings us to our next Goonie, Chunk, of course, played by Jeff Cohen.
Mm-hmm.
Chunk's real character name in the film is Lawrence. But Jeff Cohen became an entertainment lawyer.
Yeah.
I mean, as you do, if you want to stay in Hollywood but don't want to be necessarily in Hollywood proper, sure.
Yeah.
Be an entertainment lawyer.
Be an entertainment lawyer.
One thing he is notable for as an entertainment lawyer is a bridging between him and our next Goonie, Data, played by Ke Huy Quan. Data's real character name is Richard, by the way. Ke Huy Quan was represented by Jeff Cohen as his entertainment lawyer for the negotiation of the contract to get him into the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yes. Which is the movie that he won the Academy Award for in 2022.
And really definitely deserved, because he was great in that movie.
As he was getting that award, guess who he thanked?
Yeah, that Jeff Cohen.
He thanked Jeff Cohen.
As he should. Ke Huy Quan had given an interview at one point after being cast and accepting the role for Everything Everywhere All at Once, relaying a story where the producer had said, I never, and this is paraphrasing obviously, he said something to the effect of, I never would have guessed that I'd have to talk to Chunk to get Data in my movie.
Yeah.
So kind of a fun little
it is pretty surreal though.
There.
Yeah.
I would have loved to talk to Chunk to get Data in my movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be a great connection. Yeah.
He was in Short Round.
Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
In the Temple of Doom.
But with Ke Huy Quan, we are almost, at least we round out the main bunch of Goonies, but we still have to cover the last few that kind of sit on the periphery of the Goonies label. And let's start with our long-suffering Fratelli Sloth. As a little clue that he might not be necessarily on the Fratelli side, he gets a nickname.
Yep. It seems anyone with a nickname is
more on the Goonies side
be a
than
Goonie.
The bad side.
Yep.
So Sloth, played by former NFL player John Matusek.
What did he play for?
He played in the NFL for the Oilers and the Raiders.
The Raiders, that's right. Oh, and he was wearing that Raiders t-shirt in the beginning.
Yep, there's a scene where you can see Sloth displays proudly a Raiders t-shirt.
Yeah.
Which is also rather appropriate, being that the Raiders emblem, their logo, is basically a pirate with a football helmet on.
Yeah, that's right.
And an eye patch.
Yeah, that's right.
So one-eyed.
Weird.
Yeah, one-eyed
kind of
pirate.
comes together weirdly.
Boy, a lot of really kind of odd connections.
Yeah.
But yeah, John Matusek, he didn't really go on to do a whole lot more in Hollywood. Definitely no other really super notable roles.
No.
I mean, he did a few other things as well.
Unfortunately, he ended up passing away too.
Yeah, just shortly after Anne Ramsey in 1989.
Yeah. Much younger.
Yeah, much younger. But, it's kind of a thing where NFL players just seem to have a shorter lifespan than most, unfortunately. As we have now entered and exited the restaurant to meet Sloth, we meet our final two members of the Goonies. Andy. Played by Carrie Green.
Yep.
This was Carrie Green's first role as well.
She didn't do anything before this?
Did nothing before this. She played in this film and then was also in Summer Rental with John Candy. Also played in Lucas, starring opposite Corey Haim.
Oh.
Which gives us another connection back to Corey.
Yeah, it does. The Coreys.
The Corey Feldman's connections just never stop.
No.
Carrie Green went on to do a few other roles after that, but for the most part, I think she has stayed pretty happy just making occasional appearances in stage and screen, or maybe not stage, but large and small screen.
Yeah. She almost didn't get this role.
Really?
Yeah, Heather Langenkamp originally auditioned for the role of Andy.
Nightmare on Elm Street fame.
But she was considered too old.
How
You want to
old?
guess how old she was?
Maybe like 17, 18.
She was 20.
20. Well, of
That's
course.
way too old.
20's way too old.
Even though I think the one who played Troy, I think the actor who played him was like 20, in his mid-20s or something.
Right,
like that,
and he's supposed to be the same age as Andy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, God forbid that the woman be too old.
Yeah, but it's okay if the guy is.
It's okay if the guy is, of course. Well, whatever.
That's all right. It's good that Carrie Green got the role because she did a really good job on it.
She did a great job on that. And it gave her star in the world. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But that gives us our final primary cast member, Steph, played by Martha Plimpton.
Yep.
And of course, Steph, obviously a shortened version of Stephanie, inferring that she is among the Goonies.
Yes.
But Martha Plimpton, I recall her from the movie Parenthood, which I also enjoyed. Yeah, long ago. I need to watch it again. It's been far too long. And the TV series Raising Hope,
which I remember and was pretty well known. I never saw it.
I never did.
I don't think it was in my wheelhouse at the time. Nothing I would have been interested in. But yeah, that was a pretty famous one.
Yeah, I mean, she had a pretty long stint on that one as well. So good for her. I'll probably just, given time, never watch it, unfortunately.
I'll probably past that time now.
You know what? I'm certain she did a great job.
Yeah.
So that rounds out our cast.
Yes.
Let's take a moment just to kind of go over our notable production staff. Just to kind of give a few more connections to other things.
Other movies
and
people,
such.
Yeah.
So this film was directed, and we also want to mention these people because the cast often refers to themselves and the production staff as a kind of a connected family. There was often talk of a sequel, which had never materialized, but the cast had always said, we'll only come back to do it if the full staff comes back.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to mention these folks as well. So The Goonies was directed by Richard Donner.
He's been directing since the 60s.
Oh, man, he's got such a long list.
He did 6 episodes of Twilight Zone.
Oh.
He did 3 Gilligan's Islands.
Oh, boy.
He also did 26 episodes of a show called Danger Island, which I've
Danger
never
Island.
heard of, but it was also about pirates, and it ran from 1968 to 1969.
Oh.
Yeah.
Pirates are in his veins.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting because he's done things with pirates before. So maybe that was part of his, vision.
Yeah, he must just really
Pulled
love
that
pirates.
out and,
Which, good for him, because you got to do what you love.
Yeah.
Speaking of things he loved, he seemed to have an affection for the character Superman.
Yes.
Because he directed, I believe, Superman 1 and 2.
Yes.
So much so that he even threw a nod to Superman into the Goonies.
Yes. Sloth was wearing Superman's shirt underneath his Raiders shirt.
Right.
So when he ripped his Raiders shirt open, he had a big S for Sloth.
For Sloth, yeah.
But also for Superman.
also Superman. And you also get a small bit of the Superman theme song stinger.
Yeah.
As Sloth shows off his Superman
skills.
emblem.
Yeah.
His sloth emblem.
His
Let's
sloth
say that,
emblem.
yeah. Richard Donner also directed, I believe, 3, if not 4 of the Lethal Weapon films.
Oh, yeah.
So, you got some big power behind that series as well as I'm not a big Christmas movie fan, but Scrooged is one that I adore.
That's one of those films where you can watch it and it doesn't have to be Christmas because it's hilarious.
It is great. Bill Murray and all the cast in that film. Anytime someone else shows up, the scene is being stolen by whoever just showed up.
Yep, yeah. They just keep topping one another.
Yeah, just so well done, so well put together.
Yep.
But speaking of the cast and production crew coming back, that will not be possible because Richard Donner passed away in 2021. So yet another member of the Goonies has been taken away.
Yeah.
However, we still do have Chris Columbus, who wrote the script for this movie. He was the writer also on the movie Gremlins.
Yeah, he was. He's also writing Gremlins 3 currently.
Nice.
Which I'm just so excited about.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
If he's writing it, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see more of the
And it's going to be I can't remember if it's going to be I think it's a sequel.
Oh, wow. That would be interesting.
I know it's directly related to the other 2 films.
Great. So it's still in the continuity.
Yes.
Yes. Great.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Bring it on. I'm ready. I want to see them mischievous little gremlins.
He also directed Adventures in Babysitting and Rent.
Oh, no way. I love Rent.
Yep.
And Adventures in Babysitting.
Yeah.
I also really enjoy that one.
I know.
We can't pass over the fact that he directed Home Alone.
Oh, yeah. You can't pass that up. That one. My son watched Home Alone like every day.
Yes.
For like a month.
Yeah.
One of his favorite films.
And bless his little heart, he even watched Home Alone 1, 2, which are fine.
Yeah.
But also 3 and 4.
Bless his little heart.
Bless his little heart. But he enjoyed it. Of course, it's a kid punishing adults with devious traps.
Yeah.
So why not?
Yeah.
Okay, kids are going to love it. That's what those films were made for. But Chris Columbus at least directed the good one.
Yeah.
But we also would be remiss if we didn't mention that he directed Harry Potter 1 and 2 also.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of some big names behind his skills. But he didn't come up with a story on his own.
Nope.
That actually was co-developed with Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, Spielberg came up with the idea while filming The Color Purple.
Right.
Yeah, which is strange because that's a very serious...
a very different style film.
Yeah. But, in his off time when he was thinking about ideas, he often thought about what children do in their free time and what adventures and mischief they get into.
As you would.
Kind of where he got this thought for the Goonies.
Right.
And then Chris Columbus, he came up with the idea for the Goonies because he grew up in a factory town in Ohio. And
Ohio.
there was nothing to do there.
No, you would assume there's nothing. In fact, I hear that there is nothing to do in Ohio
that's
very often.
From our kids, right?
Yeah,
they say Ohio all the time.
They are obsessed with
I don't know what it
Ohio
means.
being
I don't know what it
creepy
means. Yeah.
for some reason.
Anyways, when he was a kid, he'd go into the abandoned coal mines in the summertime, and he originally wanted to have it set in Ohio, but I think where they picked was a better location.
So the coal mines would give us inspiration for the tunnels
caves,
and caves
yeah.
that we see in the Goonies.
Yeah.
That adds some authenticity to the children's adventure for sure.
Yeah.
I love finding out how movies were inspired to be created.
It is interesting.
It is. It
Sometimes
really
it's
is.
surprising.
And I mean, aside from spending this time crafting the Goonies, I don't know how much time we're going to spend on Steven Spielberg's credits alone. In fact,
Oh my gosh,
we're probably
we
just
could
going
spend
to
so much
touch
time.
on a few.
We could do a whole podcast on just the things he's done.
We really could. A whole friggin' series. Let's not do that.
No.
But let's just mention a few really super notable ones.
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park. In
I
fact,
love Jurassic Park.
there is a connection between the Goonies and Jurassic Park, more than the fact that just Steven Spielberg was involved with both.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the character Dennis Nedry in Jurassic Park, throughout the length of the film,
He's the rather rotund guy
Yes.
that ends up getting killed by the little dinosaurs that spit at him,
the
right?
pseudo foil to the good guys. He's the guy who's got maligned intent.
Yeah.
But through the film, he does a series of costume changes. And I believe the first time we see Dennis Nedry is in a Hawaiian tropical setting, and he's wearing a tropical shirt.
Is it red?
It's kind of red, pink, flowery.
Is it the one that Chunk's
style.
wearing?
It's exactly patterned after the style that Chunk is wearing.
That's awesome.
Later on in the film, we see Dennis Nedry wearing a gray windbreaker, which is styled after the one that Mouth happens to wear. And a little bit further on in the film, sadly the last time, or happily, depending on your perspective,
Right.
the last time we see Dennis Nedry, he is wearing a raincoat
Like Mikey's.
styled like Mikey's.
Uh-huh.
So
Cool.
kind of another little connection there
Little
between
nod.
Steven Spielberg's films. But another connection is Ke Huy Quan being in the Indiana Jones films, which Spielberg had also directed.
Yeah.
So
And Short Round.
Short Round. So obviously Spielberg, Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, Jaws, right?
Did he do Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
Close Encounters of the Third Kind, absolutely.
So, there's a fun fact about that one.
Okay.
So in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, there's a scene in there where you can see the droid from Star Wars, R2-D2.
Wow. Okay.
So he's like connected, I guess, to the underside of one of the ships, and it's just a very brief scene where you can see it.
Okay.
R2-D2 is on the pirate ship.
What?
Briefly, but it's a very just a little figure of R2-D2 in the
right.
rubble on the ship. So
we're going to watch that.
Weird
because
connections, but
I need to see that.
The picture didn't do it justice. I want to see it.
No, I want to see it with my own two eyes. Yeah. All of my nerdiness is coming out here because obviously I like Star Wars.
Yeah.
I got to see little R2 stuck in this Goonies movie.
Yeah. It didn't look like a shiny R2. It looked like a
dirtied up R2,
dirty
maybe?
old R2 that's been sitting on a pirate ship for 100 years.
Do you think One-Eyed Willie killed him?
If he was alive, probably.
Probably. In fact, let's step back a moment to Chris Columbus.
Uh-huh.
Because Chris Columbus, who wrote Gremlins...
Right.
There's a few Gremlins connections in the Goonies as well.
Yeah.
So not to mention the fact that Corey Feldman also was in Gremlins. But there is a scene when Chunk is talking to the police on the phone and telling them about the Fratellis. The cop is just totally not believing him because no one believes Chunk. Chunk is a liar. The police officer says...
Just like that last prank about all those little creatures that multiply when you throw water on them.
Which obviously is reference to Gremlins because they happen to have that attribute. But I believe there's also a scene in the Goonies that kind of flashes by... And I don't remember if it's in Mikey's room, but you see a little Gremlins figure.
Yeah. I read an article, too, on Screen Rant that said that they confirmed that they're in the same universe, too.
Wow, okay. So that's incredible connections. Yeah, so I guess that's going to round out our production staff as well. So let's kind of talk a little bit more about how the Goonies was received.
All right.
So when it was released, critically it did pretty well. There wasn't too many critics that spoke ardently against it. Mm-hmm. There may have been a few, because there's always somebody who's not going to be happy with a movie. But just at that point, come on, guys, just realize it wasn't made for you and move on.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't know any different looking at the success that it did, monetarily speaking. It was a $19 million budget, but they made $124 million.
Holy crap.
So, I mean, gross $124 million. So looking at the numbers alone, I mean, I would say it was a pretty big success.
Yeah.
Despite what anybody says about it.
Yeah, that's nothing to be sad about at all.
Yeah.
It's a wonder they didn't do a sequel more quickly after that.
I know, right?
I mean, damn, that's a lot of money.
They did really well. You think they would have picked that up pretty quickly. But I think everybody just got busy doing other things,
I'm
and
sure.
it was hard to get them all together at the same time. Even the director was probably busy doing other things.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I mean, all of these names are huge. So when are they all going to have time to get back together again?
Yeah.
There's no time.
The film, I think, has a special place in our hearts even today.
Right.
In 2017, it was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress.
Deservedly so.
Yep, as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. So, it's gotten the credit that it's deserved.
The number of cultural media entries that you can find literal connections to the Goonies or influences of the Goonies or direct mentions to the Goonies.
Or even just shows or movies that take that concept or that formula and apply it to their own. It's
really great the way that this movie has just stuck around. This idea of this movie has stuck around. But yeah, I mean, a very well-received film. It performed super well.
It even has its own special day.
Does it really?
Yeah. So in 1985, on June 7th, was the theatrical release.
Right.
25 years later, for the anniversary, they made June 7th Goonies Day in Astoria, Oregon. So they have their very own day now.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
We've been to Astoria.
Mm-hmm, we have.
We
did not go there.
We've been to Astoria. We've been to Cannon Beach. Both a fair distance apart. So the kids in the movie...
They did not just bike there.
They likely didn't just bike there. They're like 30 or 40 miles apart. So it's a big distance. Yeah. They especially didn't bike there in a day. I mean, no wonder Chunk was hungry when they got there. So this is... should I really get into this? I think I'm going to anyway.
It's good. You should. Yeah. I know exactly where you're going.
So there's an early scene where Mouth arrives at the Walsh's house and sees Brandon Mikey being really sad. He says,
"Come on, what's the matter? What is this, a nuclear Saturday or something? Come on, guys."
We get the impression it's Saturday.
You get the impression it's Saturday. Yeah. A few minutes later, we happen to see a calendar on the wall showing that it is October of 1985. Further on in the film, we end up seeing a newspaper. And the newspaper gets held up and it shows the Fratellis and all the crimes and the fact that
they were captured.
And that was on a Thursday. Well, if they were captured on a Thursday and they're out now, obviously it's still not Thursday, right?
And there was a date on that newspaper.
So there was a date on that newspaper, Thursday, October 24th, 1985.
24th, 25th, 26th.
Which would be a Saturday,
Which would be the Saturday.
26th, 1985. So another film released in the same year as The Goonies.
Marty! You've got to come back with me! Where? Back to the future!
It just so happens that Back to the Future, the present day where Marty McFly is a teenager, his current day is Saturday, October 26th, 1985.
So they're happening at the same time.
So 2 major adventure events taking place on the same day in 1985. Boy, 1985 was a year. Let's continue on here since we already kind of dove into some fun little tidbits about the world of the film. Let's keep going with that. So we've talked quite a bit how Chunk is a known liar. While he does do quite a bit of lying in the beginning of the film, there's a definable point where he makes his last lie, and it's really very early in the film, and the rest of the movie he continues, everything he says is the truth.
It's like he realized at a point in the movie that life's a little serious now, and I gotta tell the truth.
The lighthearted, silly, goofy little Chunk finally realizes,
shit's real.
I gotta grow up now. This is it. This is where
It's too late though, Chunk.
There's 2 points in my life.
You've cried wolf one too many times.
there's the point before I got on my bike to go on an adventure, and there's the point after I got on my bike to go on the adventure. Because when Chunk first shows up in the Walsh's house, the assembled boys are teasing him about all these different lies he's made in the past. And there's one in particular. They say, oh, just like that time Michael Jackson came to your house to use the bathroom. And Chunk replies,
Okay, Brand, Michael Jackson didn't come over to my house to use the bathroom. But his sister did.
That lie.
That
lie right
last
there.
lie?
That's the last one he makes for the entire movie. Everything else he says is the truth.
No one's buying it.
No one buys it. Everyone thinks he's a friggin' liar
late.
the whole run. Just never believed.
When he comes to the door to do the truffle shuffle, the gate is attached to this system of pulleys and hangers, and there's a chicken that lays an egg, and there's a bowling
Goldberg
ball.
Machine.
It's a Rube Goldberg machine, and there's a sign printed at the front of the gate, and it says Rube G. So it's kind of a little nod to Rube Goldberg. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
So if anybody doesn't know who that is, he's a Pulitzer Prize winning cartoonist, and he's known for drawing whimsical machines and things like that.
Big nonsensical machines that are way too complicated to do the simple task that they're asked to do.
Yes.
But they're fun. So there's also 2 very notable, kind of blink and you'll miss them sequences.
If you're watching it, you're not going to notice it.
Yeah.
Unless you're looking for it.
I noticed it.
I know what you're getting
when
at.
I was younger. And I've kind of noticed it subsequently ever since. But when I was younger, I noticed it and thought, maybe that's just like another nickname or something, right? So again, early in the film, when the boys are in the attic, Data scolds Brand for touching one of the displays. And he says,
Don't touch it, Josh.
Well, Josh isn't Brand's name.
And honestly, I didn't think he said Josh when I heard it. I thought it was don't touch it, gosh, or something like that.
Just, kind of a weird little
thing.
Because
Yeah, he has an accent. So, I just thought maybe he was scolding him.
Maybe he was scolding him with a kind of
When you hear it again, you're like, oh, no, he definitely said Josh.
Because Josh is the name of the
Brolin,
actor portraying Brand, Josh Brolin, right?
And it's not the only time that happens.
It's not the only time.
And it's not Data that does it both times either.
Right. It's not Data. So Ke Huy Quan had an acting career before this. And Sean Astin had also appeared in films before this. You'd think he wouldn't be the offender. However, he is the second offender who also calls Brand Josh. So later in the movie, when the Goonies are in the basement, Mikey exclaims, we got to keep getting lower. So we got to dig. We got to get through the basement. So he decides to try to bash his way through the basement floor. And Brand comes over to stop him. And Brand scolds him by saying, there's nothing buried under there. And Mikey retorts,
There is something buried under there. The 20th century, Mike said there's buried something under there, and there's gotta be.
But now Mikey, Sean Astin, has just called Brand Josh.
You know what I like about both of those, though, is that Josh Brolin doesn't skip a beat.
Right.
Just kept
on
going like a pro.
And, Richard Donner.
And they just left it in.
Chris Columbus, the editor, none of them cared enough to really fix that. Because they could have fixed it with ADR or something. Sure. But no. Just let it keep on going. That's fine. But speaking of editing and doing your best to kind of bring a cohesive storyline together, I remember seeing this movie on cable. But I remember when I saw it
something was different.
On cable, there were a few differences. There were some scenes
wait, that
I was like,
this
whoa.
isn't the same movie.
I don't remember this scene. I know I'm a
sleeping?
kid. But, kids tend to have pretty good memories, right?
I think the first time I saw it, too, I was like, what is this?
What is going on here? This is a totally different film. But no, there were actually a few scenes that were cut from the theatrical run, but were included in the cable release. Not even in the home video. So on VHS, you would get the theatrical version. The cable versions had these included scenes that were cut from the theatrical. So the first scene that was cut actually added a little more explanation as to how the boys found their destination on Cannon Beach. The boys, on their way through town, after they rush past Mikey's dad and kind of give a wave hello, they arrive at a convenience store. Mikey, while he's there, Chunk finds the ice cream freezer.
Shock.
In the convenience store. Actually, he opens an ice cream container, takes a big old lick out of it, puts the cap back on, and puts it back in the freezer.
Check your ice cream, folks. Check your ice cream.
Make sure you do. It's a good thing they put those little foil covers on the ice cream now. So Chunk does that. Mikey finds a map of the Astoria area, which obviously is a little fabricated because Astoria is not right on the coast. But this map shows Astoria being on the coast next to Cannon Beach, and he compares that to the One-Eyed Willie map. While they're there, Troy shows up, who we had mentioned before, kind of a jerk. Mm-hmm. Troy sees the boys there with this map, and he takes this map and he rolls it up, lights fire to the end of it, and begins to, I guess, more or less
it's a
puff on it. Yeah. So, kind of burning the map a little bit. While that's happening, Brand finally catches up to the boys, and he starts a scuffle with Troy. And the boys use this opportunity to take off again because they know Brand's here. Mm-hmm. Brand's going to try taking us home. So while he's messing with Troy, let's get out of here. So the boys take off again. The next time we see Troy, he's in a car with Andy and Steph. And Brand is once again pedaling this ridiculously small bike. Troy grabs hold of Brand's hand as he's resting his hand on this convertible and takes off at speed, which then launches Brand into the wilderness.
All like E.T. style.
All like E.T., very, very similar in style. And, as a kid, you always kind of wonder, why does Troy hate Brand so much? This is probably why.
This is part of it, yeah.
But being that Brand gets launched into the wilderness right by the coast, this also leads us to the next deleted scene that I had noticed. There's a scene where the boys are standing outside the restaurant, contemplating on what to do next, and this is where we see a few of Data's contraptions. There's a camera that's produced, and the invention goes wrong in the camera. The film spills out of the camera. Okay, that's great. Let's show off another one. This is where we first get introduced to Pinchers of Peril.
Which saves them in that movie.
Which saves them later on, but it again goes wrong, and it chomps Mouth right on the ass. The final deleted scene that I remember seeing that was really a miss, and really I'm glad they cut it.
Oh, yeah, this scene is so cringy.
Yeah.
It's hard to watch.
There's a scene where the Goonies find themselves in a body of water. Steph and Mouth, who are typically throughout the film kind of at odds with each other. They don't really care for each other.
On-screen and off-screen.
Even
they
behind
did not
the scenes.
like each other.
Martha Plimpton and Corey Feldman, not the best of friends.
No.
But there's a scene where Steph is getting...
She's getting molested.
Yeah, more or less.
Her legs keep getting touched.
Yeah,
and she's like,
groped.
Stop it, Mouth.
Yeah, so she's
and
letting
Mouth's
Mouth.
like, I didn't do it. And it's like 3 times she tells him to stop it.
Yeah, and she even slaps him.
Yep, she slaps him hard.
Which is, really, it's a good reaction from Corey Feldman on that one. Because she really looked like she laid into him.
so confused.
So there's a giant octopus.
Yeah, there's a giant octopus.
That is now attacking the children.
It's not good.
It's not. It looks really awful.
Yeah.
And
I think it's kind of purple.
And, it could have been okay had the way they resolved it not come around.
Yeah.
Maybe if they chose a different way to resolve it. But it's resolved by Data showing up with a Walkman.
which we know in the 80s
A
that
cassette
were not
Walkman.
waterproof.
They were
by
not
the way.
waterproof. You would have needed some headphones to actually hear the music coming
Right.
out of them. He turns it on and he shoves it into the octopus beak mouth.
Which he just opens and lets it in.
Yeah, it just opens right up.
Doesn't crush it. He just holds it in his mouth.
Just holds it in his mouth.
Yeah.
Data closes the beak mouth, and the octopus now, for whatever reason, really digs music. Just kind of leaves the kids alone and swims away.
Is that what happened? Because when I watched it, I thought maybe
dancing.
it was like the reverberation or like the sound waves was causing him to be confused, and that's why he floated away. Or was it really like meant to be like he danced away?
It certainly looked like he was dancing. He was kind of flailing his
it looked like he was
his
dancing,
tentacles.
yes.
Sure, maybe he was just disoriented. Maybe.
But when I watched it, I was like, oh, it's the sound waves causing him to be disoriented.
Let's be honest, that was a banger of a song.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
The funny thing is that production-wise, they had intended for that song to be a hit single. It never took
Really?
off. I wonder why. Because
they
it
never
wasn't
played it.
featured in the film. They still did release it as a single. I believe it was a B-side to The Goonies Are Good Enough, but it never really took off. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Weird.
So cut that one.
Yeah.
So-
it was good. They do mention it at the end of the movie, though.
What happened out there? Were your lives in danger?
The octopus was fully scared.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I as a kid, I always was like, "What the hell are they talking about?"
Just Data being
Octopus.
weird.
Right. So the
He
first
was
time
just over-exaggerating.
yeah, just exaggerating about an octopus.
Yeah.
But then when I saw the cable version, I was like, "Oh, octopus." Now, when you watch the film and you hear Data mention an octopus, you'll understand what
Yeah.
he's referring to.
Yeah.
There were some other cut things. There was a whole subplot about monkeys escaping from the zoo, stealing a car, and another police chase through town involving monkeys driving a car. So glad that was never really finished production on
Me
and
too.
not included. That's all I could really find on kind of cool stuff connected to the world of the Goonies. But let's kind of, as we kind of wind down here, let's talk a little bit about how, like, some fun things we've found about production maybe.
One thing, we were talking about some of the influences that Steven Spielberg and Chris Columbus had for coming up with the idea for the
Right.
movie. I had found that the Fratellis have kind of an interesting backstory because their whole concept came from an actual real life criminal. And the criminal was Kate Barker.
Ma Barker.
Ma Barker and
Right.
her boys. She was an early 20th century, crime boss is what
Yeah.
they made her out to
Quote
be.
unquote.
Yeah. She was framed as this like ruthless crime matriarch. J. Edgar Hoover actually even called her the most vicious, dangerous, and resourceful criminal brain of the last decade. She even hid out in Menominee, Wisconsin for a while. Yeah.
Welcome to town.
To hide out from the law. But it turns out the media was just trying to make her look scary.
Right.
She was clearly complicit in a lot of these. She, was part of the starting of the crimes and the cleanup afterward. But she never really participated in any of these. She certainly wasn't a mastermind. She ended up dying because she was gunned down.
Ooh, that's a rough ending.
Yeah, she was gunned down because they still framed her as this crime matriarch.
Yeah, and-
She actually wasn't. So yeah, that's how they came up with the Fratellis. And even Mama Fratelli, she had a tattoo on her arm.
Yeah, I
and
remember that.
Yeah, and I remember looking at it going, oh, that's cute. They like painted a mom tattoo or something.
Yeah, I
It looked
think
like
it was
a heart or something.
Wasn't it a
or-
little anchor?
Yeah, it was a little
I think,
anchor
yeah.
or something. It looked very like, I don't know, like something from the
Yeah.
Navy or something like
Something
that.
you'd expect, sure.
Yeah. Turns out she was in the Navy. And
No
it was
way.
an actual
Anne Ramsey?
Yeah, and it was an actual tattoo that she
Uh-huh.
had. Yeah. I thought that was interesting.
That
'cause
is
I
cool.
remember looking at it going, oh, that's fake. No, it's not fake. She
Good
has
for
she has
her.
a real tattoo.
I would
She had
not,
a real tattoo.
would not have expected Anne Ramsey to be in the Navy.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder how many drill sergeants had to be put in their place by her.
I should have looked up what her part was. Maybe she was the drill sergeant.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I
She
don't
would have
know
been a
if-
good one.
I don't know if in her day if the women actually went through drill or not, but
She would have been a
boy,
good
oh
one.
boy, she would have put some people in their place.
Yep.
But speaking of Navy, I recall you telling me about the Inferno, about how long it took.
Oh, how long it took to build
To
it?
build,
So,
yeah.
not only did it take them 2.5 or 3
2.5,
months.
3 months, whatever.
they kept it from the kids. They wanted an authentic kind of reaction to this ship.
Right.
So they built this ship on one of the largest sound stages in Burbank, California. It's 32,000 square feet is the size of the soundstage that they built it on. It was one of the biggest ones on the Warner Brother lot at the time. Of course, there's probably bigger ones now. But at the time, that was huge. The Inferno was 105 feet long.
Man, that's a ship.
And so they kept it from the boys, the whole crew, because they wanted an honest reaction when they came out of the cave and saw the ship. They wanted to hear what they had to say.
Well, yeah, if you put that much time and effort in.
Yeah, and it was kind of their idea of method acting, right? So they brought the kids in, and when the ship was revealed, Josh Brolin exclaims, "Holy shit!"
Aw, Josh, it's your first role, man. You did so good before.
And so Donner decided to reshoot that scene. So that scene is actually the second time they saw the ship, not the first time they saw the ship.
Way to go, Josh.
Yeah. The ship they tried to sell when the movie was over. They couldn't get anybody to buy it.
Really?
So they ended up having to piece it out. Part of that ship ended up on the Pirates of the Caribbean ship in Disneyland. So it's
nice.
not like it all went to waste.
So it still lives. Ship of Theseus sort of thing.
Yeah. Parts of the ship have been taken apart and kind of put all over, So, but that's notably one of the places that some of that stuff went to.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I'm glad the ship sort of lived on.
Yeah.
But, had they approached little 5-year-old me and said, "Hey, no one's buying this ship. Will you give us some money?" I'll hand over all my babysitting money and lawn mowing money.
Yeah.
I would have bought it for probably what would I have had at the time? Like $12? So, I mean, they would have gotten a sale at least.
Yeah.
Come on. I can't swim. I need a ship.
Well, speaking of taking little pieces away.
Right.
Sean Astin got the treasure map.
Did he really?
He took the treasure map home with him as his little souvenir from the movie.
Right.
Had it at home. Now, if you know anything about the way this treasure map looks, it looks really dingy and gross.
Yeah.
The designer, the production designer, who's in charge of the prop map, his name was J. Michael Riva. He thought it looked okay, but, he wanted it to look more authentic. So
touch it up, make it believable.
So in his hotel room, he, used coffee, and then he also wanted to make it look like it had, like, blood on it. So he was looking for a marker, and he couldn't find a marker that he could find anywhere. So he ended up using his own blood.
Ooh.
So this map's nasty. It's got like coffee and blood. I'm sure it's got dirt on it. It's just gross. And so he took this map home, and apparently his mother was cleaning his room.
Oh, God.
Yeah, his mother was cleaning his room, as mothers do, and she threw it away.
Oh.
So it does not exist anymore because
Sean Astin's mom.
Sean Astin's mother threw it away.
No.
Yeah. Do y'all know that Sean Astin's mom is actually Patty Duke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't know if some people don't know that.
I'm sure many people don't.
Yeah.
Patty Duke is an older famous actor.
Mm-hmm. She's the one who threw his map away.
Boy, that's too bad.
Yeah.
That would have been I'm certain by now that probably would have ended up in that Astoria
oh, heck yeah, it would.
museum for sure.
I would hope so.
But speaking of One-Eyed Willie, so there's a pretty notable speech that Mikey gives when they're in the attic.
And then he got into this cave, and then the British, they blew up the walls all around him, and he got caved in, and he's been there ever since. Forever, and ever trapped.
Well, it turns out that speech was originally written to be told by the Fratellis, but it seemed that throughout the filming, the Richard Donners didn't like the way that it was working. Across. So one time in between takes, he took Sean Astin out of the production studio and said, "Okay, I'm going to tell you a story."
This was Richard Donner.
Saying, "Okay, I'm going to tell you a story, and I want you to listen, but then as soon as I'm done, I want you to tell it back to me." So Richard Donner tells Sean Astin this story about One-Eyed Willie, and then Sean Astin tells it back to him. Of course, very Game of Telephone style as a kid, of course. Probably didn't get all the details exactly correct, and maybe even embellished some.
That's the magic, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the magic. So as soon as Sean Astin finished relating it back to Richard Donner said, "Okay, great, let's go back in." So they go in, and that is where you see Mikey telling that story.
He did so good.
He did so well.
When I was watching, I'm like, how did he memorize all that? And it's really interesting because he didn't memorize it. He was just told it right then and there.
Yeah, it was just fresh on his mind, and
Yeah.
he filled in any blanks he had to, I'm sure.
It just goes to show the director of this film how creative he was with these children, because he did a lot of these types of things with these kids to get them to do these. Because I had read that it was hard to work with kids because they're, a group of kids like this will play off each other. They're rambunctious. They're hard to keep quiet. You got to take after take because
you got
somebody's...
Corey Feldman there.
You got Corey got mouth there. They've really tried a lot of cool things to get honest reactions and really believable ways for these characters to tell their stories.
Yeah.
And that's just another example of that creativity that they use.
Yeah, it's a really novel use.
It really is. It's interesting. I never would have thought that was how that worked.
Yeah. No, that was really great. But speaking of, I guess, in reference to the fact that there was a fair amount of improvisation used in the film.
A lot of improvisation.
There's a scene where, the scene we had mentioned where Chunk encounters Jake Fratelli on the road.
Yeah.
While Robert Davi is singing a little bit of opera.
He's trained in opera.
Robert Davi's
Robert
trained in opera?
Davi is trained in opera.
No kidding.
Which is why he sings it so much. Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah. He improvised Madame Butterfly.
No kidding.
Yeah. So he was improvising, singing that.
Okay, so the man's got talent.
Yeah. So when Chunk came to the door and saw him, he heard the singing, and there's Jake.
Yeah, and I was going to mention how Chunk improvised
and then Chunk does
the Hebrew
what?
prayer
Yeah.
in response to that. But wow, okay. So
the whole thing was improvised,
that
and they
is
kept
astounding.
it. And that's why it's so great.
Wow. Okay.
That whole thing was funny. And when he's running through the forest, he's like, I hate nature.
I hate nature.
I hate nature. And then he comes across Jake, and such a small part, but I really like that scene.
Here I thought I was going to scoop you with a cool little fact, and you got me. All right. Fair play. I get it. Yeah, I'm trying to think if I've got anything else really notable. Do you...
About the Fratellis in general?
About the Fratellis, the film, the production?
Oh, I've got so much more.
You got so much more.
I do.
Anything else
so
you want to
speaking
show us?
also of improving and coming up with your own things.
Yeah, hit me with it.
That scene where Chunk is going to get his fingers chopped off.
Yeah.
We start with the fleshy little fingers, then the plump little hand, then the fleshy arm. Now tell me where your other little friends are.
I think that that scene is so funny because a lot of the stuff that he's told to tell the truth. Tell us everything that you know, because they're trying to find the kids in the tunnels.
Hey kid, I want you to spill your guts. Tell us everything. Everything.
Everything. Okay, I'll talk. In 3rd grade, I cheated on my history exam. In 4th grade, I stole my uncle back.
Turns out all these things were things he had done in his real life.
Jeff Cohen?
Jeff Cohen, yeah.
Okay.
So, for example, stealing his uncle's toupee and gluing it to his face for the Hebrew school play in 4th grade.
Right.
That was something he actually did.
Huh.
The puking scene, however.
But the worst thing I ever done, I mixed up all this fake puke at home, and then I went to this movie theater, hid the puke in my jacket, climbed up to the balcony, and then I made a noise like this.
That was actually a prank that Steven Spielberg had played as a kid.
Oh, no kidding.
And that's why that ended up in there. But these are all real things that had actually happened. And he just started spewing them out.
So another instance where I'm certain Jeff Cohen was told this story by Steven Spielberg, and he relayed it in his very
probably
child way.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
yeah.
That's awesome.
And they probably had him tell them stories. And okay, now use those.
Yeah.
Tell those stories, because that would be great. There's also another scene that he improvised.
Oh, God. That Jeff Cohen really has a mind for improv.
It was good. So there's a part where he's sitting in a chair and he's tied up next to Sloth.
Yes.
They wanted to get a more real reaction from Chunk during this scene. Because in the scene, Sloth picks Chunk up in the chair.
Right.
They wanted a really good reaction.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's so they told
harrowing.
they told Chunk that we're gonna cut right before he picks you up. So he's not gonna pick you up in the chair. Don't worry about it. Well, he actually does pick him up in the chair, and they kept recording it. And he ad-libs the line.
You smell like fish head.
A lot of people thought he said, "You smell like fish heads."
Fish head. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah,
that seems
which
relatable.
it just is likely.
Yeah,
it's fish heads, fizz
head.
ed. They probably both stink.
Yeah,
and
nasty.
That just came off the top of his head.
That's great. I love that.
Yep.
Jeff Cohen, I've seen him in interviews as a child when he was promoting the Goonies, and so many of those interviews, he's got quick wit, he's smart, he's always got something to say.
He does.
And it's never what you expect.
Mm-hmm. There's also one other character that ad-libs a line that I'd like to mention.
Yeah, bring it on.
Data,
okay.
Data ad-libs a line. There's the very first booby trap that they come across in the tunnels.
Right,
are these big rocks that are dropped from the ceiling. And there's a line during the first booby trap where, before I tell you what the line is, he promised his mom he wouldn't cuss.
Sure, as a preteen would.
His mom said, "You cannot cuss in this film. I'm fine with you doing the film. No cussing."
Right.
Promised his mom, "I won't cuss." So in the scene, he ad-libs a...
So he was just saying letters.
Yep, and of course they run water and stuff during it so they could cut it out in like cable TV and stuff like that. But he definitely spells out the word shit.
And he stayed true to his mom.
He did stay true to his mama and did not lie and did not cuss out loud. He
what
spelled
a good
it,
boy.
but he did not cuss.
Way to go, Ke Huy Quan.
Way to go, man. One of the scenes in the movie that we hadn't touched on was a scene where they bring in the maid.
Oh, yeah.
To help them clean.
Rosalita.
Rosalita, yeah. The real name of the actor is Lupe Ontiveros.
Okay.
She actually knew perfect English. In the movie, she only speaks Spanish.
Yeah, only speaks Spanish.
But she knew perfect English. However, Mouth, played by Corey Feldman, didn't know Spanish. She knew like a little bit, like, what you would normally know in like school.
Sure.
But he did not know.
El baño.
Yeah. He didn't know fluent Spanish. So Lupe actually was instrumental in helping Mouth speak his Spanish lines.
Oh, that's awesome.
And speak them phonetically. So he sounded like he actually knew Spanish. Yeah. So that all that Spanish speaking had to have taken him so long
I'm
to learn
sure that
all
was a lot of learning.
Yeah. So that's pretty impressive. I was impressed with how fluent he sounded.
Yeah, I mean, he did so well to my non-Spanish speaking ear. He did so well that I would have assumed he had perhaps in school learned how to speak Spanish.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Mm-hmm. I just want to make one more movie connection.
Well, I've got more yet. So
you got more yet?
You're gonna
okay,
make
let me jump
one
in here.
more. Okay.
I'm gonna make one more movie connection.
Yeah.
Relating to Josh Brolin.
Uh-huh.
So Josh Brolin, obviously, we had mentioned as Cable in Deadpool 2. There's actually a point in Deadpool 2 where Ryan Reynolds' character, Deadpool, obviously, refers to Josh Brolin's Cable because Cable he's deficient in one eye.
Oh, right.
So
I know where you're going with this.
Deadpool refers to him as One-Eyed Willie. So,
yeah,
of course,
no
very
coincidence
meta.
there.
Deadpool himself as a character is very meta, bringing that all around.
The only other kind of funny thing that I thought was kind of interesting.
Sure.
There's a gentleman by the name of Ted Frostman.
Ted Frostman.
You wouldn't know him.
Doesn't ring a bell.
You wouldn't. He's a stuntman. So
okay. Yeah, sure. Okay.
We don't know our stuntmen because they're kind of behind the scenes.
Let's give them a little spotlight because they deserve it too.
Yeah, right. He met Steven Spielberg on the set of Jaws.
Sure.
And so that's how they met. And then he got a role in Goonies. And he was actually the corpse in the freezer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So that was his big, and he said that was one of the most prolific roles of his career.
As a corpse.
Well, morbid at its core, it does remain kind of one of the funnier moments in the film.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a lot of it was, Chunk's reaction to it. But the way that he played this, I mean, he played the corpse.
He played stiff so perfectly.
Yeah, there was just no reaction on his face. He let his body fall. Chunk's holding his body up, and like freaking out. And yeah, that was his most prolific role. And As a stuntman,
that's saying something.
It's funny, but it's also at the same time like, all right, so he got some recognition for that because we all remember that scene.
Oh yeah,
if you've seen it, you remember that scene.
Yeah, the way Chunk is looking so utterly disgusted,
Yep.
and the way that the dead body just looks like a dead friggin' body.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So
Good for him. That's fantastic. There's a few more things that I want to mention as far as related media.
Yeah.
Well, first thing I'm going to bring up is the very well-known Goonies Are Good Enough song, performed really well by Cyndi Lauper.
Yes.
Very popular at the time. Still, it's a song that I love. I will listen to it. Anytime that it comes on while I'm listening to music, I'm going to listen to it.
And you always think of the Goonies.
No one will turn it off. No. I will not let them. I have to listen to it. But that movie, or that song...
It was basically a movie.
Basically a movie because there was a 12-minute, a two-part, 6-minute each, two-part music video released on MTV at the time.
Basically a movie, yeah.
Watching that music video is a little insufferable, but in this 12-minute video, it really does mimic, in a way, the storyline of the Goonies. Cyndi Lauper plays the daughter of Lou Albano, a WWF wrestler at the time, really well notable. He even starred in her music video for Girls Just Want to Have Fun also. So they must have had some sort of working relationship. Her parents, Cyndi Lauper's parents in the music video, Lou Albano and his wife, run this convenience store, which also is falling on hard times and is being purchased by corrupt financiers. So these financiers arrive on the scene to take control of this property, and it turns out that these financiers are all evil other wrestlers from the WWF at the time. Rowdy Roddy Piper, the Iron Sheik, I believe. I'm not super...
Freddie Blassie, the Iron Sheik. Nikolai Volkov.
I believe Ted DiBiase
the
shows up.
Fabulous Moolah.
Right. So really a who's who of wrestling at the time has shown up. And of course, while her parents and the financiers are all arguing, Cyndi Lauper somehow finds a secret passage that had been hidden in the convenience store. You think somebody would have noticed it previously. Apparently, she's the first to have discovered it. So she crawls into a tunnel system, and begins kind of mimicking the Goonie journey. Well, as she's going along, of course, now her parents discover she's missing, and they find this passage as well, so they chase after her. The financiers also chase after them. She arrives at a pirate ship at the end of the video, and there's where she discovers almost the entire child cast of the Goonies, all being captured and enslaved on this pirate ship. Of course, this is where she discovers some treasure, some magical treasure items, and escapes back to the convenience store with this treasure. And at the very end of this musical adventure, the resolution that they come to is that a very magical poof and he's here Andre the Giant shows up on the scene, who then delivers a WWF smackdown on pretty much every evil wrestler in the music video, thus, of course, saving the day. All thanks to magical Andre the Giant.
All right.
So yeah, that's a grand 12-minute adventure. Watch it one time, and then just listen to the song after that.
This song was in the top 10 single in the U.S. Billboards.
Wow.
Hot 100s.
Good for her.
Which was great, except she hated the song.
Oh, she hated it.
She did. And people wanted her to play it, and she wouldn't play it.
Oh, obviously, I would have wanted her to play it, because I love this song.
She refused to play the song live after. So she did play it live up until 1987.
She may have been contracted to do so.
Yeah, but after 1987, she refused to play it, and then she incorporated it back into her live shows several decades later. I guess in Australia in 2004 was when she officially incorporated them back in.
Began to embrace it a bit more.
But she didn't, in the U.S., she didn't play it again until she did her True Colors tour in 2007, 2008.
Wow.
So it was a long time. She didn't put it on any of her albums at all because she just hated the songs that much. So yeah, it's kind of interesting because she got a lot of acclaim for that music.
Yeah, I said, I really enjoy that song.
Yeah. This is kind of bringing us back a little bit, and it's kind of taking us out of talking about some of this production stuff.
Yeah.
But we had talked about the ship being built and all the things that they did to create the Goonies universe. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we didn't mention was that there are water slides
Right.
that they created.
Oh, they look like so much fun.
And they were real water slides.
Ooh, I want to ride them.
Production crew actually used them when they weren't working.
Oh, who wouldn't?
Yeah, I know. I would too. So they were used quite frequently just by everybody that was involved in the film. And then, of course, because it was on the Warner Brothers set, they had visitors. So
right.
Chunk actually did meet Michael Jackson.
Oh, Mouth.
Well, Chunk was the one who talked about
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
meeting Michael Jackson.
Oh, yeah. My apologies.
So Michael Jackson came to the set because, of course, he's friends with Corey Feldman.
Right.
At the time, we won't talk about that, but that was why he came to visit.
Yeah, okay.
Harrison Ford came to the set and visited. So they had quite a few visitors come and
some
check
big
the set out.
visitors.
I don't know if they used the water slide, but they checked out the. I know Harrison Ford explicitly climbed around the caves with the kids.
Sure. That's awesome.
Yeah.
See, I would have wanted to use the water slides, but I can't swim, so I would not probably
That's
have
what
used...
they make floaties for. You're
Oh,
fine.
my little water
You can
wings.
put some water wings on.
Yep,
and you're
that would...
fine.
Okay, yeah. So then I would have used the slides. The last thing that I found to really reference is something I've been kind of saving for the end, just because it's kind of a personal affection for me. When I was younger, I had played, obviously because I loved the Goonies, I had seen for rental one time at a local
Was it
rental
Blockbuster?
stop.
Family
Probably
Video?
one of the two, or some other random local video rental store. They had for rent the Goonies 2. And I thought, well, hell, the Goonies sequel.
Yeah.
I gotta play this.
Yeah, that's got to be the sequel to the movie, right?
It's gotta be. It's Goonies 2,
Yeah.
of course. So, very difficult game. I wasn't able to finish it in the time that I was renting it, so I got my parents to buy it for me. Now I can play it to my heart's content. I kept wondering, why is Mikey being chased by the Blues Brothers?
What?
And why is there a third Blues Brother who's really small? There was no little Fratelli. There was a big Fratelli.
Yeah, he was way big.
Big.
It's like twice the size of Mama.
So I was wondering what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
So I kept playing it anyway, because it's still fun. It's
Yeah.
the Goonies 2. I'm
It's a video game. I mean,
discovering the sequel where the Goonies versus the Blues Brothers happened. So the adventure continued through a restaurant-looking setting, through some caves and underwater levels and a pirate ship.
You're like, oh, it's sort of familiar, but
Yeah,
not.
I sort of get it. And it was the first game I ever completed, 100%. I completed this Goonies 2 eventually after some difficulty.
I'd like to say, does this derail at any point? But it feels like it already did.
It did a long way back when the Blues Brothers showed up. And
mini Blues Brothers.
At the end, you rescue a mermaid.
Oh, so it further derails.
Yeah, it just
It
kept
jumps
on
the track
going
entirely.
off the rails. A mermaid named Annie. In my head, I was like, okay, well, did Andy have a sister named Annie who's a mermaid? So I had no idea what was going on. All I know is I liked the game. It was fun. It was a good adventure. It was the first game I ever completed, so a very proud badge there. But I found out eventually that before Goonies 2 was released to home consoles, Goonies 1 was a video game that sort of followed the concept of the Goonies movie, in that you were in a restaurant and then
Where'd you
caves
find
and pirate
Goonies
ship.
1?
So I found out that the Goonies 1 was released in arcades.
Oh,
in
in
the
an
States.
arcade. Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And it was released for the home console, the Famicom, in Japan.
Oh, which you would have known.
We wouldn't have known that. But Goonies 1 still starred Mikey, and he was fighting rats and mice. And
In Goonies 1?
In Goonies 1. And still being chased by the Fratellis.
So is this was Goonies 1 like a prequel or a sequel
No, it was supposed to be following the story of the first one, but
Oh.
not really, I guess.
Clearly not.
Clearly not. And Mikey, who was very proficient with kicking, because that's how he dispatched enemies, as well as bombs, like legit cartoon bombs.
Okay.
So Goonies 1 video game, Goonies 2 was a sequel to Goonies 1 video game, not necessarily the movie. None of which I imagine probably were set in the canon universe. But I did find out eventually also that the Blues Brothers were not the Blues Brothers; they were the Fratellis.
Oh, okay.
Jake and
makes
Francis.
I would like to say that makes so much more sense, but it
Right.
still does not make any sense.
And Mama and Pipsqueak, Cousin
That's
Pipsqueak.
the name of
the small one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who the hell is Cousin Pipsqueak?
There's nothing else that needs to be said about it. It's Cousin Pipsqueak.
Okay. I'm just going to accept that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
Fabulous. Love it.
Because Cousin Pipsqueak exists.
All right. I love it.
Right. But with all of that unfortunately related tie-in media put to rest, have you got anything else before we bring this adventure to a close?
I think we're ready to move into our spoilers section.
I'd say we're probably very ready
to
move into spoilers.
Yep.
So let's get our spoilers. Anyone who doesn't want to be here for them, please gather your concessions. Step outside. Yeah, come back if
Please
you want.
come back.
We're not going to hold the spoilers long. I think we each have maybe one or two things to mention. Skip ahead a little bit if you want to. We'll be here.
We'll be here.
And you'll be welcome back. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. But before you go, please check out our website at themovietheaterlobby.com and on YouTube at The Movie Theater Lobby. Or email the show directly at themovietheaterlobby@gmail.com. Also, you can find the show on social media at The Movie Theater Lobby on Facebook and Instagram at The Movie Lobby. And if you want to interact with us individually, you can find me, Brandon McLeavy, at Brandon McLeavy on Facebook. If you need to know how to spell McLeavy, that's McAleavey. I'll be the picture with the frosty beverage. And you can also find me on Instagram at BrandJNRP. And Leia, where can our listeners find you?
You can find me, Leah McLeavy, at LM Nerdroom on Facebook and Instagram.
And finally, please give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, or wherever you get your podcasts. That'll really help our fledgling podcast and encourage us to do some more. But with that, I think you've had your chance to leave.
Yep.
If you're still sticking around, you're going to hear some things.
You're going to hear some things.
Not bad things.
You can't take them back.
Once you hear them, you can't unhear them. I think let's get to it, right?
Yep, let's get to it.
All right.
Kids suck.
So I've really only got one dimension. I always kind of wondered what the hell was running through Chunk's mind when the Fratellis come walking up the beach to where the kids and the police are.
Where they could have just ran away, by the way.
I've never seen a one-way beach.
Yeah.
But apparently they decide the best way to go after you've escaped as known criminals is toward the police.
There's only one way to go, so they have to go towards the police.
Yeah. Not to mention, you can see down the coastline. There's miles of coastline the other direction.
That's dangerous territory out there.
Instead, walk to the police.
Sand sharks.
And the news media.
Octopus.
And the kids. And whatever else. Yeah, there's so many hazards down that other way.
Yeah.
It's not even worth going. So as they walk up, Chunk is there with Sloth. You get kind of a one-on-one camera little situation there. And Chunk says to Sloth,
Sloth, you're gonna live with me now. I'm gonna take care of you.
To which both of us look at each other and we're like, if my kid said that, I'd be like, whoa, hey, let's talk about this.
Let's consider this first.
Got some special needs. I'm not sure we're ready for this.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ready to adopt a
fully grown man.
That seems very odd to me. But the novelization based on the script, it actually has more detail about the scene. Apparently, as the novel mentions it, Chunk actually has a conversation with his parents about Sloth. So there's a little more explanation to that in the novel, which is kind of interesting.
So is this the novelization by James Caan?
I believe so, yeah, based off the script.
Yeah, the novelization does a little bit better job of going into more detail. So if you want more detail about the world, you want to read the novelization.
Yeah.
It talks about all of Data's inventions and all of his booby traps. He's got so many more in the movie. And this is actually where the Fratellis tell the story about One-Eyed Willie versus...
Oh, right, because it was in the original script that way.
Yeah, because it was in the original script that way. So that's the way it is in the novelization as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. That's good to know.
Yeah. Do you remember the ending where all of the parents come to the beach? So same ending, where the Fratellis are walking up and Chunk's mom and dad are there. And do you remember when we were watching the movie and I said, gosh, they did a really good job with the casting because those parents look a lot like their kids.
Yeah, we both remarked
macaroni.
on that, and you were really astounded.
Especially Chunk. I'm like, Chunk's mom and dad look just like him.
Yeah.
And his sister looked just like him, too.
Right.
The dad and the sister were just good casting.
Okay.
But his mom was his real mom.
Oh, no way.
So that's why it looked like him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome that they let Chunk's mom, Jeff Cohen's mom.
Not just Chunk's mom. Not just Jeff Cohen's mom.
Okay. So who?
Also, Carrie Green's mom and dad, real mom and dad were there.
How nice.
Martha Plimpton's real mom and dad were there. And adorably, Corey Feldman's grandmother was there too.
Oh, yeah. Grandmama Feldman.
Yeah. So they had actual parents and grandparents there as
That's
their
really cool. That's nice
real
that they would have done
families.
that.
Yeah.
I bet those parents were so proud of their kids.
Oh,
man.
yeah. I would have been.
What a great special moment. And to have it captured on film, that's super cool.
Yeah. So this is also the same spot where you see the ship kind of sailing off into the distance.
Yeah, the Inferno going away.
Going off into the distance, into the water. And I remember turning to you and going, gosh, what a waste. They get money from the ship because Mikey has a marble bag that he empties his marbles out of, and he puts jewels in there. And when the Fratellis are patting him down and trying to get all the jewels off of them, they miss this bag.
Yeah.
So the maid is going through all of their belongings and cleaning them off, doing maid things. And she comes across the marble bag and she finds the jewels.
Yeah, and she starts freaking out.
She starts freaking out. Oh,
saving the Goondocks.
Oh, whatever she says.
Yeah, money.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, that looks like it's not enough to save the Goondocks. It was, 12 gems in there.
As a kid, I had no concept of how much gems were worth.
Sure. So as a kid, I was like, whoa.
Yeah. God, a handful of gems. Whoa. That's enough to save a whole town. Amazing.
As an adult, I was like, what is that?
That's not right.
So I remember turning to you and going, well, that's not going to save the Goondocks. Yeah. This is stupid. And that ship's just gone off. Someone else is going to steal all that money.
Oh, yeah. Someone's going to get all that cash. Or it's going to sink to the bottom.
Turns out that I found an interesting tidbit about maritime salvage law.
Okay.
So according to international maritime salvage law, the rights to a salvaged vessel and its contents go to the person or persons who first successfully bring something off the vessel in question.
Oh, and Mikey brought the bag.
Yep. So since Mikey brought the jewels off the ship, the Inferno, and everything on it belongs to him.
Ooh.
So even though it's sailing off in the distance, all they got to do is bring the ship back in. It's Mikey's. So
not that that's any easy task, but
no, but they could probably get a tugboat or something attached to it and bring it back in. But I guess that made it more believable for me. All right, so they're going to bring the ship back. All the jewels that are on the ship, those are going to help them save the town.
Yep.
And it really brings that poignant scene between Mikey and One-Eyed Willie. One-Eyed Willie's a skeleton.
Yeah, of course.
But he's having a conversation with One-Eyed Willie, kind of like a man-on-man, one-on-one. And it really brings that whole scene together at the end.
Yeah, you're right. It does, because Mikey sort of acknowledges One-Eyed Willie as the first Goonie. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's really poignant.
It's very sweet.
That's a nice connection there. Yeah, because it sort of makes me feel like, looking at it in the way you presented it, it's sort of like One-Eyed Willie and Mikey, almost One-Eyed Willie handing the torch off.
Handing the torch, yeah.
Oh, that's a really good connection. I like that. Good job.
Yeah, thanks.
So have you got anything else?
No. As far as spoilers, I have really nothing else.
All right. Well, all right. Anyone outside? Anyone who exited the lobby for spoilers? You can come on back in now. We're done.
Oh, good. Here they come.
Yeah, just letting them know.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Welcome back. So are we going to talk about our film rating?
Yeah, so we kind of had this little thought, and we're not going to go into super detail on it because that's not what everyone's here for. Everyone's not here for our opinion.
If you want to know what it's out of, we'll post it on our socials.
Yeah, we'll post our criteria that we set aside for it. But we made our own little rating system, and like I said, we're not going to go into super detail. We've probably already kept you long enough. Do you want to go first, or shall I?
Go for it.
Okay.
What'd you rate it?
I gave this movie an 81.
An 81.
81
so
out of 100.
what stood out most for you in terms of giving it a higher score?
So for me, I really enjoyed the atmosphere of the film. I felt, the setting was great. The way it was really built around the kids and their adventure. As cartoony as some elements were, it sort of put you more in the mindset of a kid. Like the world seemed cartoony and adventurous. I loved the chemistry of all the actors. The script sometimes was a little weak, but I feel like even that fit its purpose. I mean, it's weak because it's kids. So I feel like, with those things, and the movie, the music I thought was very fitting. It gave you that adventurous feel. All around, I think the film really did well.
For me personally, I gave it a 79%. So just a few,
so real close.
Few percentages below. I would say the things that stuck out to me the most in the film would be the audience that it was made for. I think that they nailed that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's made for everybody to watch, but I can honestly say that if I sat my 8 and 10-year-old down in front of this movie, they'd watch it.
Yeah.
I think they would love it.
Yeah,
it's an adventure that they would enjoy.
It definitely aimed at children back then, and it still would even work for kids now.
Yeah,
truthfully.
absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing too is its innovation and significance for what it is.
Oh, absolutely.
Directors and writers have used this as a basis for a lot of projects down the road, like Stranger Things, Super 8. There's so many films that have come out within the last 10 to even 15 years that have really pulled from this movie, and
mimic
a lot of other movies from the time as well.
Of course.
But I mean, this movie really had, I wouldn't say it was innovative in that it was like new for. There's been other movies that were like it.
It wasn't the first kids' adventure, but
no, but
it definitely refined it.
I would say if somebody said name the top 5 adventure movies, kids' adventure movies from the 80s, this would be in it.
Oh, yeah.
Hands down.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So, yeah, 79% for me.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
I think it's a film that, for the most part, would still hold up today. I could see some people just not getting into it. It does have an older feel to it.
Sure.
But that 80s stuff is in vogue occasionally.
It is, yeah.
It still comes back. And like you said, I think our kids would enjoy it. We haven't set them down to watch it yet, and we probably should.
Oh, we will.
But yeah, totally worth watching. If you've got kids, please go ahead and watch it with them.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it yet, please sit down and watch the Goonies.
Yeah.
I think
it's one of those movies you should watch before. It's like on a bucket list of movies you should watch before you die.
It does have a very universal appeal.
Yeah.
It's going to hit a lot of audiences. So yeah, I think that really kind of wraps up what we've got for you all on the Goonies. Wait, just a moment, Leia. As luck would have it, I mean, I realize this isn't the perfect time right now, but before we close the lobby doors for the first time, you want to know what I just figured out?
You sound like you want to tell me what you just figured out.
I kind of do. It's kind of exciting.
Okay.
That faded treasure map we pulled out at the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I figured it out.
It.
I figured out where the X is pointing to.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we got to go before anyone else figures it out before us and gets there first. So you ready for our own kind of little adventure?
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
Heck yeah. All right. So before we go, one last thing. First, thank you to everyone for listening and joining us here for our first episode.
Yeah, and thank you, Brandon.
And thank you as well, Leia.
This was a lot of fun.
It really was.
Yep, it was quite the adventure.
Yeah, I'd say let's do some more after we go get this treasure.
Oh, yeah, we gotta hurry and do that first.
And quick, before we go, one last thank you to our listeners for giving us your time and attention and joining us today for the
grand opening of the movie theater lobby.
I just saw the most amazing thing in my entire life. First, you gotta do the truffle shuffle. Come on. Do it. Come on. Do it. Cut it out, Mom. Cut it out.